Hello and welcome to another episode of the Crastinators podcast. I am your hero and god emperor, the best guy ever, Bestie Boy. Thanks for joining us once again. And today, we've got, in addition to our regular Digibro over here,
hey, buddy boy,
my partner in crime, we've got two outsiders, two guest people, as we like to have sometimes, who in recent times I've become friends with, who I really like, and I think make great videos that you guys should definitely check out. And you probably already have, to be honest. So first is the Gaming Brit.
I hate these things because this is why I've got to introduce myself and sound all charismatic just by saying my name.
It's okay. The only goal is to let people hear your voice so they can distinguish you later.
My name's Charlie. I do the Gaming Brit on YouTube. I review games. Hyperbit Hero's here with us. He was the one. He was the one who said, Yo, Charlie, I'm gonna be on PCP tomorrow.
Yeah,
and I was
right.
And he was like, "You're not invited." I was like, "Yo, you've watched this podcast before, right? Things get savage. You're gonna need someone in there backing you up, man. Like, you got to." And so he was
true.
He was like, "Okay,
you guys
don't
really,
just do PCP without a partner. It's a dangerous drug."
This is a tag team match. So let's hear from you, Hyperbit Hero. What's happening?
Not much.
Well, there you have it. All right. All right. So we're doing things a little differently today. So we're going to start with one topic, and if things go long, which they probably will, if we run out of stuff to say for the first one, we still need to fill some fucking time, we're just going to go into our second one. But our first one is it's sort of nebulously defined right now. We're gonna flesh it out. But the word that I want to use is cred fags. You know, cred fags. There is no Urban Dictionary definition for this because we just made it up. In fact, we should enter this into Urban Dictionary, our own definition we come up with. How full circle will that be? So why don't was it you, Charlie,
came up with
who was
right? So
yeah.
Well,
why don't you tell us about this?
Well, I just find that today on the internet, when we all tweet, we all do our YouTube videos, and we all meme it up. Sometimes we're all a bit guilty of doing that, and sometimes obviously people want to be in on the popular things and what other people are playing and what other people are talking about, and sometimes they go out of their way to try and weasel their way in to these popular things.
Yeah.
Obviously not that interested in just being part of the franchise, the anime, or the game. And it's like so annoying because you get so many questions on YouTube and Twitter and stuff about which parts of this franchise can I skip and like where should I start? When obviously it's just if you're interested and you care and you want to have lots of entertainment, just start from the beginning and make your way up. Like, what's the big deal? I know Hayden gets this a lot as well, especially with
So the thing is, like, they do want to get into it. They just want to get into it as quickly as possible, as easy as possible. Right. They don't want to fucking experience the story or anything. Like, of course, talking about the Yakuza franchise. That's where I get it. People ask this all the time. Listen, you want to get into Yakuza? There's one just called Yakuza.
Right.
That's the fucking one to do.
Dude, oh my god, I gotta tell you, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten this question, and it baffles me that anyone has to ask this, which is, what order do I watch Neon Genesis Evangelion?
There's only one order.
There's a TV series called Neon Genesis Evangelion, a movie called The End of Evangelion, and then a TV show called Rebuild of Evangelion, or a movie series called Rebuild of Evangelion.
I'm not
they're
following.
in the
You need
title.
to break it down.
The watch order is in the title.
Yeah.
And even you can, a lot of the times you can kind of follow a progression of 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, I mean,
they're structured.
Like Charlie's saying, the best advice is usually go to Wikipedia and look at the chronology and watch them in the order they released in.
If you want to be a serious investigative journalist, you can put in the extra mile and go to Wikipedia and look it up.
It baffles.
That's an option.
It baffles me because. Even with like the smallest of franchises, it happens. I'm big into my Devil May Cry, and I get questions like, can I skip to 3? Can I just skip all these? Because I know 3 is the one with the memes, right? That's the one with all the jokes that I want to be in on. And it's like,
but the biggest joke is Devil May Cry 2, though.
It's like there are 4 games, guys. You don't like. That's what confuses me, right? Like,
and numbered for your pleasure.
Well, hold on, Charlie. Are you saying you think everyone should play DMC 2? Like, even knowing that it's...
I am two ways about that, actually, because it is a terrible game, but at the same time, if you play 2 and then you play 3, it's like, whoa, you're experiencing this jump in quality, you know?
I have a lot of sympathy for that viewpoint. I agree. I would like everyone to play, if they, like, you know, people bring up, like, Final Fantasy as an example of games that you pretty much can skip, but I would really like it if people would, when they get into the series, play all of them in order, because that gives you so much context, and, like, a lot can be lost if you don't, and I didn't. I started with 7, was my first Final Fantasy, but I look back at what old fags have done when they've played through the whole series in order, and seeing that growth happen is such a beautiful thing. And that's when, like, they talk about, like, classical
then
long-term
the disappointment
fans.
when you get to 13 can be all the more
if you
like sweet. Yeah,
that's right.
If you boot up Devil May Cry 3 and experience that opening after playing through 2 and the wet fart that it was, it intensifies the passion of that scene, you know.
And you know what else it does as an ancillary benefit is if you start, let's say, like, a new person started playing Final Fantasy when 13 came out, and they're like, I'm gonna play 13. It's numbered 13 of the series, but I'm gonna start with this. And if they don't like it, they're like, well, Final Fantasy's done. You know, I'm done with it. It didn't work out for me, but you know.
Hayden, tell them how silly it is, especially with Yakuza, how people want to start so much with Yakuza 3.
Because 3 isn't that good compared to to 2 at
Well,
least.
it's because Yakuza 3 literally begins with the ending of Yakuza 2.
That's
like,
it's a continuation of, like, the same cutscene.
I think because especially with Yakuza, it's such a seasonal series, really. When you think about like each game is like a season, really, and like a long-running crime drama. So it's like the silliest series.
Hey,
to
there's
skip
some people who jump into TV shows like in
Oh.
season 5.
Yeah.
You know, I'll say, I mean, for some defense of this, I do think that it's entirely possible to play one of the later ones, and then, you know, that makes you want to go back and do the rest. And I think depending on the series, it can be fine. Like, you know, the Souls series, for instance. Like, Demon Souls was not very widely known because it was a PS3 exclusive. It was a, like, not an indie game, but it was, like, you know, it's a weird, obscure Japanese game. Dark Souls then blew up super huge, and I do think a lot of Dark Souls fans went back and played Demon Souls, you know, and like, and most people got into it through Dark Souls, but it also wasn't even presented as though it were a sequel.
That's
that's fine though. It's like, it's when people like with Yakuza start asking, is there a recap of 2 and 1 in 3? Can I just read it?
Yeah,
you know?
it's when you start to ask the questions like, what can I do to make up for the fact that I haven't played the first games? It's like, just fucking play them, dude. I would never tell people to not jump into a series at any point.
I have to play
you know?
devil's advocate here because my brother Victor is a hardcore cred fag, or I think we're using this term correctly, but because me and him have gotten into arguments over this specifically because of me following Charlie and Hayden on Twitter, because I've seen these guys make this argument over and over again that, like, if you want to get into a franchise, play them all, right? And I've thought about it and been like, yeah, you know, I kind of agree. I think that's the healthiest way. You know, I've never played through, like, Metal Gear, for instance, but if I did, I would want to start from Metal Gear Solid because...
Oh, yeah, for sure, for sure.
And for what it's worth, technically you should start from Metal Gear, but, you know, like... I would like to play all of them in order if I was going to. And my brother Victor, who has only played through Metal Gear Solid 4.
No, the worst one.
But it's one of his favorite games ever. And here's where we get into something complicated, because Victor's argument is, yeah, but you'll never play them. Which is a sound argument. Because, for instance, the Witcher series, right? Super Bunny Hop did this whole video series on the 3 Witcher games, and I was like, cool, now I kind of understand them and stuff, and it really seems to me like The Witcher 3 is the only one I'm going to really get into. Because The Witcher 2 seems like it's too hard, and The Witcher 1 seems like the controls suck. So, like... why not just skip to Witcher 3? But at the same time, I know that there's a lot of references to the past games, that there's a sort of an ongoing narrative through all 3 games. And so I keep saying to my brother, like, I'd really like to play through Witcher 1 and 2. And he's like, yeah, but you'll never do it. You will never play through Witcher 1 and 2. And there's a chance you'll miss out on what could be one of your favorite games, Witcher 3, if you just play it. But you'll never play it because you're waiting for Witcher 1 and 2. And I don't think he's wrong, because I don't think I'll ever play through all 3 of them.
But why won't you play them?
Because I don't really play a lot of video games in the first place.
Well, okay,
so
all right. That's
it's like
fair.
a time management thing.
But when I look at myself with that argument, like, I played all the Final Fantasies, and there's a million of them. And it's, I think
played
that
them all
kind
in
of argument...
high school, didn't you? When you
For the
had
most
like
part,
lots
yeah.
of time and like you could just do
the,
that.
The thing is,
but all that is that's making concessions. You're making concessions to not take on a responsibility to do something. And like, if you're willing to compromise, then okay, you can go be a guy who manages his time efficiently, but you're also a cred fag. That's the trade-off you're making. That's what it is. You know?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go on.
Oh, you can go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, though, I feel like whenever I'm like, because I'm in the same position with Witcher, I feel like the third game looks really interesting, but I want to play the other 2 first, and I haven't gotten around to it. But I feel when I don't get around to it, I'm just going on to play another thing. And the thing that weirds me out about cred fags is, it seems like people just want to have, like to me, playing a long series, playing a lot of content, it's still content and entertainment, and that's why I don't get why you'd want to sort of spend more money on more products and more things when you have like a few that can like sustain you for a long time. You see, that's
that deeply fascinates me as well. And I from observing my brother, who at this point I'm thinking of as the ultimate cred bag, because he does everything that we're insulting here.
Fuck you, Victor.
Like, watching the way he plays games, like, he can seemingly only get excited about a game if there's some kind of hype. You know, like, even if it's just him, even if no one else cares about the game, it has to be, like, new and fresh. Because, like, he
sounds like a big LMFAO fan.
He has so many games that he has
Which
never
I am too,
beaten.
by the way.
I shut up. He has so many games that he's never beaten, that he'll never go back to, that he has, like, this huge stockade of games, but for some reason it'll be like, a new game comes out and he's like, I'm gonna go buy that, and I'm like, well, what about the last game you never finished? And he's like, yeah, but I'm not hype about that. This one's a new game, and so it's new, and now I'm excited, and it's like, if he doesn't play through a game when it's new and all at once, and like beat it, then he'll never beat it. If it stops being new and it fades into the background of his collection, he'll never finish it. It'll just sit there forever.
I can't like say that that's wrong or anything, but like that's a very emotion-driven reason to play games as opposed to any kind of intellectual reason, which is it's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but I feel differently.
It's just weird to watch, because I'm always like, because for me, I get excited to go play a bunch of Super Nintendo games. For me, the idea of spending $60 on a new game is such an ordeal, because like newer games are longer and they really ask for more like investment on your time and energy, and like I don't have patience for like the cinematic games that come out these days, like if I'm gonna have to sit through like 10 minutes of like them taking control away from me, the game's not worth my time anymore. Like I need it to be, I like Dark Souls and Doom, like those are the recent games that I've enjoyed, and so like, and even Doom fucking pissed me off when it did take control away from you. Like,
how long were those sections that it did that? I was just curious.
I would say there's probably grand total 10 minutes of like forced cutscene.
Yeah, I didn't find it too
compared to what's out there.
Doom.
That's great, but in a game like Doom, it's going to be annoying.
Yeah, it's still annoying.
Yeah,
and you can't skip it even when you replay the levels. That's what particularly annoying.
Yeah, that would annoy me.
It's like, guys, look at us being so cheeky, saying fuck being forced to watch cinematic sequences through a forced cinematic sequence.
Yeah, that was really obnoxious. But anyways, like, for me, the idea of like going out spending $60 on a game that's gonna go down to $20 in 6 months anyways. For me, it's like an anti-hype cycle. A new game comes out and everyone gets hyped about it, and I take one look at the price tag and I'm like, I don't want to play that for a year.
Well, that's a very
cheap.
That's a very interesting point, because I think something me and Hayden find when we're recommending PS2 games that are hard to find, it's like that, like they find the PS2 game on eBay and it's like $40, and it's like, I don't want to pay $40 for a PS2 game, but you'll go out and buy the latest shitfest for like $50.
Yeah,
but
I loved that argument when you made it.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, like and I went out because like based on Hayden's videos, I've bought like Folklore, which was like $20, and it was, you know, an older game. It shouldn't probably be $20, but I wanted that game. I didn't want to just own a game because it's new. Like it's like you said, like these are classic games. Like it's like if someone was saying, I don't want to pay $15 for Super Mario RPG. It's like, but you think it's going to be one of your favorite games, you know, like that's the funniest thing to me is I'll have people say like, oh, that game is a classic and I've wanted to play it for 10 years, but it's $20 and that's too much. And it's like, if it's a classic, it's going to be worth more than any of the new games that you're playing.
To play devil's advocate, maybe they just feel that way because they have been told that old games are cheap, and having to pay more money for an old game just conflicts with what they expect to, you know, do for that. So, but whatever. I agree.
Right, but
me and Hayden.
Here's the thing. The ultimate cred fag move is to buy a game because you heard it's good, just to own it and not play it, just to have it on your shelf like a figure or something like that. So when people come over, they look at your shelf and think, "Oh, hey, this guy's got amazing taste in video games."
God, I wish I could believe there's no one like that, but I know there's people like that.
Well, did you?
But that's like on another level. That's like a level where it's like none of us would ever know a person like that.
You know, it's like a more
like they're
reasonable.
all in disguise, man.
I could see something like that happening when like you get it. Like if you're like a rich kid that your parents just buy shit for you and they give you a bunch of games and stuff. You know, like FIFA 2000. Whatever.
Hayden's in the military.
Yeah,
I could see this happening there. In fact, my ex-girlfriend was a little bit like this because she was in the Air Force and she would just spend lots and lots of money. And so she would buy a lot of games that she would just never actually play because she just bought them to spend money. You know?
You gotta spend your money.
I remember
Steam has kind of caused that with Steam sales because like prices get so low you can't afford not to buy these games.
I remember years ago, Hayden, you told me that one of your friends was like, "I'm gonna buy all the Metal Gear toys," even though he hadn't played any of the games.
Oh my god! No, that was a friend. He said he was gonna buy like a giant couple $100 like Metal Gear Rex figure. Even though he's never played any of the games. I was just like,
I mean, I guess if you really like the design, then that can, you know, exist outside the games.
I don't think he ever showed interest in Metal Gear Solid aside from that. He's like, I'm going to buy this shit, bro.
Interesting. And you know, there's a whole other side to this that we haven't really talked about, which is when people buy specifically obscure things for the sake of them being obscure and being able to tell on places like V on 4chan, like, you guys haven't even heard of these fucking games I'm playing right now, but they're obviously the best because you don't know about them.
Right.
And I think they're objectively right.
Yes.
That's my stance.
I don't know, like, I don't know how it's hard to gauge.
That's really a music thing a lot of the time. But people do that with music all the time.
I don't know. It's hard to gauge with those things because there's like, how do we know if they don't just like the thing, you know? But I mean, obviously posturing happens, and
Context,
I think it's a thing people do. But I don't know. Personally, I'm someone who loves seeking out obscure shit for real, so I'll just go out and watch every weird fucking thing. You know?
What's the point of posturing to anonymous people?
to feel good about yourself, dude. You haven't gotten addicted to the use, man.
They don't know who you are, though. Like,
yeah.
But it doesn't. You're a person on the internet.
Well, that's
who's
what you have a
them,
3x3 for. You see, if you have a 3x3 that shows what your favorites are, and you post it on 4chan, and it looks like you have great taste, then everyone will give you.
No, but Digi, you've created the opposite effect now when you were complaining about 3x3s, because now people are going to try and make 3x3s on purpose to get cred that aren't cred. Because you were complaining about too much.
3x3 threads became a fucking nightmare after I made that video.
Because now people are like, to get cred, I've got to talk about things that don't have cred. Oh shit!
On each of these sites, there's a different sort of internet currency. And in the case of the 3x3 threads, there's a new currency, which is like the digibuck, which is like it's endorsed by the degree to which people
God,
adhere.
I really never thought of it this way. Now I can't trust any of them.
You can't trust any 3x3 ever again.
They've all got ulterior motives theoretically, so they cannot be trusted.
Well, I like to think the result of this is just that everyone is now willing to put Kill La Kill on their 3x3s. I think that's the only major difference I've made, and I think that's a proud thing to have done.
Do you know the worst thing about cred fagging is when it backfires on people? Like, I've seen people like on Twitter, they ask like, where should I start with JoJo? And then someone in the comments will be like,
that's the one. That's the one I was trying to think of. People always ask what they can skip when they're reading fucking JoJo. Read the whole thing, you pieces of shit.
Like they're like
the whole thing.
But that's the thing. Being a cred fag can get you into trouble because then you can get replies from like just like dunderheads who are like, start with part 3. Part 3 is the best.
Yeah.
Because it has the
video.
Oh god.
Part 2 is objectively superior to Part 3. People accept it. Accept it.
Well, that's the funny thing about JoJo is like everyone seems to have their favorite part, and like people talk about which ones are the best. Personally, I think JoJo is always like the same. Like there are differences in each arc, but the tone of the series is always the exact same. It's always when people say that, over the top, scatological, insane. I'm
a JoJo savant expert, super powered, brilliant man, and I can tell you that when people are making that argument, what they're really talking about are the characters and like the specific stands, and as well as the general slight difference in tone of like Part 4 is like a slice of life with stands, and that's really fun, which is why it's
also
one of the better
like
parts.
I mean, I don't think it's that like in terms of what's going on moment to moment, it's not that different from every other JoJo.
That's entirely true.
If the tone is the same the whole time, that's all the more reason to start at the beginning because it's not going to get a super different experience if you start at part 4 or part 3.
But you see, that cuts to the nature of what cred fagging is, which is they just want to get to the stuff that's most commonly discussed so they can be a part of the conversation as quickly as possible.
I think the worst example I've ever seen is a link Hayden sent me to NeoGAF of some guy who had played Dark Souls. Do you want to explain it, Hayden?
I don't remember this.
Oh, you don't remember? It was like, he's like, I've played Dark Souls, and I've been told that a lot of the... This is a NeoGAF thread, so of course it's going to be like, I've heard that like all these designs are from Berserk. Tell me, which parts of the Berserk manga can I skip?
Just to see the references?
The fucking Berserk manga.
Oh, man.
Just read the whole thing. Why would you do this?
The man doesn't want to get triggered, obviously, which is understandable.
I kind of like when something is broken up into parts, it's a little easier to understand, right? You got, okay, there's the first game, the second game, maybe they had different staff behind them. Maybe they're not quite the same type of game. The Berserk manga is just one ongoing manga. There's no like, it's not like Gunsmith Cats where there's like Gunsmith Cats and Gunsmith Cats Burst, like there's two different. No, it's just all Berserk. Why would you think it's okay to skip any of it?
And I gotta tell you, the thing that since we're talking about examples of this that infuriate us, the one that really sticks out to me is people in all seriousness will just, I don't know how they do it, but they will just jump into reading One Piece. Like, and a lot of it happened during the giant war in the middle of the series where all the characters were coming together throughout the series to like do something. And these people, there is no way they could have known what the fuck was going on, who any of these people were, what the stakes were. Everything in One Piece builds on itself because it's a story. It's a continuous linear story.
No, it's just all so random.
To me, it excites me if I start something good from the beginning and I know there's like hundreds and hundreds, like loads of content coming up. That excites me. I'm like, oh shit. I'm not like, well, you see, I don't know who the characters are in opening 14, which I watched on YouTube, so I'm just gonna skip to that part. It's like, no. It's like, I want to go on the journey, man. I want to go on the journey.
The only argument I can even kind of accept is that like my life is too busy. I don't have time to do all this. Like, it's not a good argument. Like you're being a cred fag when you do that, but it's like, I get it.
Well, here's the thing. Here's another thing. I think a big part of this is also that all four of us are analytically minded YouTube journalists or of a sort about these mediums, right?
Right.
Yeah. And I think the way that because how do I put this? None of us give a fuck what's current and like new, and I think this really reflects because I've been following Hayden and Charlie here for over 3 years on
Damn.
YouTube.
I haven't
And
even
neither
been
one
doing
of them
I haven't
has
been following myself that long.
neither one of them has ever really been someone who makes videos about new games, unless those are games that are like really relevant to the franchises that they talk about. You guys have made a couple Uncharted 4 and like DMC videos, but like you didn't cover fucking BioShock Infinite when it came out, you know, or like the Last of Us in any depth.
But even in that brilliant Metal Gear Solid 5 video by our friend the Gaming Brick here, a lot of that was about the context of the entire series and why it, you know, it's legacy stuff.
But
you know?
these are guys who go back and do fucking a bunch of Devil May Cry videos at a time when, you know, like
Bayonetta is
no
the
one
new
would
thing,
be talking about it. Or just anything, you know, they talk about older games. I go back, I talk about tons of older anime. Nate, you've only so far covered shit that, well, I don't know. You did Monster
Musume, that's the one. I got one.
Man?
And and One
That's
Punch
true.
Man. Well,
So
that
this doesn't apply to
was
you
a
at
little
all.
late on One Punch Man, but like,
Fuck you.
but the point is that we're the kind of people who I think we care about history and we care about classics and we care about going back and finding the best stuff of the medium. And I think that a lot of these cred fags, all they care about, like Charlie said, is being a part of the conversation. It's
care about
all
being
about
in
like,
on the meme. That's what it's about.
They see something trending on Twitter and they want to, as quickly as possible, get it. Whereas I see something trending on Twitter and I'm like, I don't fucking care. I'll get to it when I get to it. You know, like if everyone's talking about the like Metal Gear Solid 5, you know, like I don't run out and go, I need to play Metal Gear Solid 5 so I understand what everyone's saying. I'm like, one day I'll play all the Metal Gear Solid games if I get around to it, and then I can know all the memes. But like I'm in no hurry because I would much rather know the entire story than know a part of it so that I can be, you know, so I can spit memes for like the 2 weeks that the game is relevant, and then, you know, immediately fades into.
You can't like
who
play
gives a fuck.
MGS5 and then just pretend to be mad about the things they messed
Right.
up. You know?
yeah. And you know, it's totally. Oh God, I totally forgot what I was gonna say. God damn
Well,
it!
you know, and I think I satiate my desire to like keep up with stuff because I just watch tons and tons of analysis videos. You know, so like I know like a startling amount about Metal Gear Solid 5 because I watched our good friend Jesse play through like a lot of that game on the Blue Glow. I watched Charlie's analysis of it. Bunny Hop wrote a bunch of videos about it. So, like, I get why everyone feels the way that they do. And, yeah, like Charlie said, like, me jumping in now, I would feel so much less than what Charlie felt. You know, like, watching his video, I understand, okay, this is what the series veterans are feeling. But if I play the game, I'm not going to feel those things. I'm not going to feel anything. I'm just going to be like, oh, it's a game. You know, like, I don't know what the fuck. I don't know who these characters are. Who the fuck is Big Boss? I don't know. You know,
and, you know, I kind of think of it like I really do consider myself an educator, among other things. And, like, it's not like because someone came up with a new idea that we like throw out the old one when it comes to like, okay, your times tables, like those are fine, but I've got like a new version and I'm gonna teach everyone this. It's like, it's not, you take the best ideas throughout history, and that's really my interest, is finding the things that are the best examples of what they do and highlighting them so that we can improve them and people can learn from them in various ways.
Well, you're talking about educating, Nate, and the thing is, never give the cred fag any leeway just because you want somebody to be into something you like. Like, because even in that Berserk example I gave you, there were people with Berserk avatars in that post saying, well, I guess you can skip this part of it. And it's like, no.
Oh, no.
Never give anyone else.
People do that with Yakuza, saying, yeah, you know, you can skip to 3. There are recaps of the first 2 games. You don't need to watch them. You know, you can just read a fucking Wikipedia article about them and know the story. It's like, that's the worst part. It's like, each one of these games has its own story and, like, twists and
it's a real shame with Yakuza, because, like, 2 is so good. It's like, it's such a fun game. And to
2
think
has, like,
that
the
people
best
just skip
story
it.
in the entire series. After 2, the entire storyline for each one of the games fucking takes a huge dip.
But, you know, I'm with you on this, but just to play devil's advocate, I do understand people's urgent desire. It really ties back to the human desire to be loved and be in a community. They want to be in on the thing that everyone's talking about, so there's a desperation to know, like, if everyone at your office is talking about Game of Thrones, which is happen to a lot of people out there. It's like, oh man, I want to be in, I want to know. And so a lot of people, just out of sheer, this is pretty philosophical now, out of a sheer desire to be loved and to be a member of the human species, they will as soon as possible cut to the chase of understanding the idea that is, caught on with the people they know in their lives.
Well, guess what, bitch? I'll never love you if you don't. From the beginning.
I think with video games, though, there's this other whole technology element where it's like, I don't want to play on those old systems. Me and Hayden talk about this all the time. Yeah. And it's the fact that, that PS2 has like this icky vibe to it. I want the HD thing. And it's like
that's some bullshit, because like the PS2 does not give me icky vibes. Playing shit on the PS3 gives me icky vibes.
Right.
Because it's just fucking, all the games run like ass.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And it's the same for like, old anime or something, like the animation.
Oh man, and
it's 4:3.
Yeah,
yeah.
There was another NeoGAF thread where it was like Hayden sent was like, remember when Yakuza 5 was getting localized and some guy was like, well, if it's not on PS, like he owned a PS3, but he was like, yeah, you explain it, Hayden.
I already packed my PS3 up into the attic. I ain't getting it back down.
Lol.
I've seen a lot of stuff like that.
That's the real shit, dude. Those are the real reasons people use to like dismiss works of art or whatever, because they don't want to fucking unpack their old TV or whatever.
That's always been funny to me, because people talk about like backwards compatibility, and I think that. I think all these consoles should have it.
I agree.
But it's always been really funny to me that people make like such a huge deal about it, because I still have all my consoles, Now I wish I didn't have to, like, when I went out to buy Yakuza as a result of Hayden's video, I was sans PS2 because 7 of them have broken on me over the years, so I had to go buy a new one, but it was like $25, and it would have been nice if I could have just popped that fucking disc into my PS4, my fucking supercomputer sitting on my desk. But, whatever, like, this idea that you, like, have to pack away your old consoles and never touch them again, it just reeks of not giving a fuck about history and old games and being like, I'm never going back. I'm never playing something
old. Then
old.
again, I do think the companies that make these things should play a role in preserving that with the backwards compatibility, though.
I agree. I agree.
But here's the thing. Those people don't have those consoles because they're the ultimate cred fags, and they didn't play games until recently to own one.
Hey, they could just be young, for what it's worth.
Hey, fuck the young.
But
fuck young people.
But those old consoles, like I said, are fucking cheap. I went out and bought, like, I literally went to, I was at a used game store, and it's like, oh, there's Yakuza, and there's a PS2, and this is less than $50 combined, I mean, I guess if you're 10, that's a lot, but that's less than what a new game would have cost. A whole console and a great game for that console was less than buying one shitty new fucking $60 game. But I think this is like particularly bad in gaming, which is probably why we're using so many gaming examples. And there's a great article that I read this one time and I wish I could remember what it's called because I cite it all the time. But there's this guy who was like a professor teaching like game design at a college, and he decided to run a little experiment where he asked everybody in the crowd, who here's a fan of the Elder Scrolls games? And like 80% of the class raised their hand, and he said, "Who all's played Skyrim?" And all those hands stayed up.
Oh yeah.
Then he said, "Who's all has played Oblivion?" And like more than half of the hands went down. And then he says, "Who's played Morrowind?" And it's like 2 guys left. And then he's like, "Who's played Daggerfall?" Nobody, right? And he's like, you say you're a fan of the Elder Scrolls, but you're really a fan of Skyrim, and you clearly have no context of the history of this franchise. And it's like, it's so weird that people seem to think, like, especially when it comes to games, that the newest one is just the best one, just because it's the newest, and they have no interest in looking back and finding out if there's anything different or interesting or better about the old games, which in something like the Elder Scrolls, a lot of people consider Morrowind the best one. Right. And these people will never know that,
and dude,
the advantages of that one, because it doesn't look new like Skyrim.
I'm so glad you got to this point, because at least for me, and maybe not everybody agrees, because not everybody sees games the way I and possibly the rest of you do, it is not about like the most polished presentation or anything. What matters about all art is the density of valuable ideas. and like
Yeah,
the density
I
of
agree.
artistic merit, and that is what it's about, which is why a game that looks like, just for example, Final Fantasy VII, that looks pretty ass, is so widely loved because it is so much density.
Okay,
of
don't
things
say
that
it
people
looks
enjoy.
ass. It has dated graphics.
I don't even agree with that. I'm just saying what
the
that's the
graphical
meme.
design is
Yeah.
fantastic. It's just that it has dated graphics. But that doesn't. I think
True.
that game looks better than most modern games with
Yeah.
state-of-the-art graphics because the art design is great. Every
you're-
background
I mean,
is
let's
seared
not-
You're
into my
shaming
memory.
me. You're schooling me on my own game here,
Let's not
Digi.
even.
I feel
let's
shame.
not even get started on like stuff like Silent Hill 2 and 3 and stuff that look like
Yeah.
amazing
Oh,
on
damn.
PS2, and now
Still look
now
great.
The updates come along, and that's the version I have to
Right.
play because I don't
Dude,
want a
it's-
PS2.
Oh man, like if you guys have seen the amazing videos by
Twin
the Real
Perfect.
Silent Hill Experience,
Yeah.
the Real Silent Hill Experience by Twin Perfect, like the way that they so clearly lay out the case that in Silent Hill 3, for example, like every room had like unique assets that were specifically constructed
Yep.
to evoke a specific scare and emotion for that room, versus in like Downpour, it's like the same fucking desk with pencil and
Yep.
paper in the exact same
Yeah,
location
yeah,
like
man.
1,000 times in an empty world where there's nothing to do, not even random spawning monsters.
Well, that's like the
It's-
difference between
night and
creating
day.
a
It's
piece
night
of
and
art
day.
and creating a product. Like
That's right.
Downpour.
That's right.
Well, it's like
Mm-hmm.
But it's the newest
ga-
one, so I gotta skip to it.
The gaming
That's right.
press
That's right.
like, perpetuates this, and not just in the whole buy the new game thing, in the whole like the recent trend of like people going, finally games are getting good. They used to, like, and I'm not
Yeah,
saying that,
yeah.
and I'm not saying there aren't great games at the moment, but it's just there's this culture that.
Yeah, the whole Citizen Kane
Games
of
have become
gaming problem.
legitimized only
Yeah,
recently.
Well, that-
like,
and that's
like everyone
the
was retarded before. No one knew how to make a game
Yeah.
Right.
before. Like
The fucked up
PS3,
part
like
is
it's not
in
true.
any other medium, I feel like you would get laughed out of a room if you
Right.
tried to be a critic
Exactly.
who hasn't
Exactly.
seen the classics. You know, like if you're a film critic and you haven't seen Citizen Kane, then people are gonna be like, "What the fuck are you doing?" You know, like why have you not seen what is considered to like The Godfather? Like I've never seen The Godfather, but I'm gonna review a gangster movie. People are gonna be like, "Why would you ever do that? You clearly have no context into what gangster movies are because you haven't
Yeah.
seen
No,
what
no,
is
but did
considered
you-
by many to be the greatest film of all time."
Did you?
know?
All old games are problematic, so there's no reason to
That's
go back
true.
and
Like,
watch
you know,
and to
guys,
go
the
back
real
and play them.
the
They're
real
bad.
question I have here is, why are our schools wasting our time teaching our kids with these old ass books for grandpas? You know,
Yeah.
like Catcher in the Rye is 1,000,000 years old. Let's move on. We've got
Yeah, we
Catcher
got
in
The
the Rye
Fault in Our
2.
Stars now. Like, why would you read an old
Yeah.
book like Catcher in the Rye?
You know,
when
Crime
could
and
read
Punishment
The
was
Fault
great.
in Our Stars.
Crime and Punishment was great, but we've got a new version. It's called Death Note. It's better in every way. Let's just all read Death Note instead. It has replaced it. It has superseded it in artistic merit in every way. That's
Yeah,
what I'm
'cause,
saying.
people were fucking Neanderthals until recently
Yeah.
when we got
That's right.
iPhones.
There's something so like sad to me about the idea that we have like so much gaming criticism and none of it's looking back. And like, you know, I've made this point before, and Endless Jess had a great video called "Fuck the Citizen Kane of Gaming," and both of us were kind of making the point that like, the Citizen, like if there's a Citizen Kane of Gaming, it's fucking Super Mario Brothers. You know, like that's a classic game. Every element of it is amazing. You know, it still holds up to this day. People still play it. It's been beloved for decades by people around the world. How is that not like an impeccable classic game? And how can you really like talk about games as a medium without knowing about it? You know, without
the,
having
I
played
agree.
it?
I completely
It's-
agree with that.
It's the Gesamtkunstwerk or whatever that word was.
I'm not gonna try.
It's
can't pronounce it.
Watch that video by Mr. B. Tongue. That's the one.
Yeah.
Like I find that this is just me personally, but and like I'm becoming like I guess maybe this even makes me like a cred fag, but it's like I find that, at least with me, just in terms of this citizen of gaming as Super Mario Brothers thing, I find like a lot of people love in America like Atari, and a lot of people in Britain like ZX Spectrum and stuff, but like it's like it feels like to me
What?
the modern video game began with Super Mario Brothers. Like, if you think about it, like that's the point to me where I'm like, damn, games got good. Like, finally.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
That's how I feel, at least.
Did any of you guys even beat the original Super Mario Bros? Or am I hanging out with a bunch of crap
I
fans?
have. I beat it on Game Boy in like the 3rd grade. I remember doing it
Dude,
well.
World 8 is no joke. Like
World 8 is no joke. That's a hard game, dude.
I have beaten Super Mario Brothers by use of save states.
Yeah, all right.
And by which I mean I save state after every jump.
Yeah.
That's how I got through that game.
Dude, yo, this nigga over here maps save and reload save state to the X and Y of his controller when he's playing.
Man. You just don't know when you're going to run into a cred fag. It's like every... like,
never know.
That game is fucking hard.
It's hard. It's hard. It's true.
And it's hard in a way that's inferior. Like, the thing is, and I mean, there's an extent to which I'm like, all right, you have to see everything in order to talk about stuff. But there's also an extent to which it's like, I'm not going to play a game I hate, you know? And, Mario Bros. Is not my type of game. Like, it's the fucking live system alone is enough to make me not want to play it. Because it's designed to be played forever, and it's like, I now live in a world where there's 1,000 games I could be playing, as opposed to one that was the one that came with my console when I was 8 and I had all the time in the world. And I feel like Mario Bros. Is a lot easier to play through when you're in that circumstance, as opposed to like getting frustrated and knowing that I could put it down and go do anything else, you know?
I say like saying that Super Mario Brothers is like where I think games got good makes me a cred fag, because now it's like, hey man, you didn't play Atari, you don't know what it's like, you can't appreciate Mario Brothers.
Well, that's just a distinction between the modern era of video games.
That's true.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm just distinguishing errors.
I will say I feel like a cred fag now because of the fact that I have always looked like there's certain Atari games. Like Adventure is considered to be like the first like adventure game, first RPG, and like I always see it on lists of like the best ever just because it's the first, so people feel the need to list it. But I always look at it and I'm like, yeah, but it looks like shit. So obviously.
Well,
who cares? But then it's like, well, I haven't actually played it. What if it's actually really great? That's like, for reasons I couldn't possibly foresee by looking at the graphics.
That's like the grand scheme of the medium, though. Obviously, if you're looking at a franchise or a series, and in isolated from the rest, it's like obviously if you're skipping around, then obviously
it's tough, man.
You've gone full cred on that one.
But really, we should we're all on the spectrum. We're all on the cred fag spectrum.
We're on the cred.
That's what's. I haven't beaten Silent Hill 1, but I absolutely love Silent Hill 2 and 3. Maybe I'll get to 4 someday. And I feel a little bad about that I played 3 without playing 1, so I don't have like all the content. Well, but you only have so many hours in the day.
Yeah,
I think
I'll do it someday. I want to play.
If I had to put up an argument to people who are like, who never go back and who like just look at them as like old games, it's like, dude, if they're made a franchise out of it, chances are the first game was great. Like, there's got to be a reason people liked it enough that they could afford to make another one, right?
That's a good argument.
There's a reason these, like, I mean, people will say, like, well, okay, but the technology's gotten better, but we've built on it. But yeah, but at the same time, those old games have an art to them. It's not just about the technology. And, like, I went back a couple years ago and played Zelda 1, and I thought it was fucking phenomenal, and it's a style of game no other Zelda game has been. They've all sort of, none of them have that same free-form, roaming, just exploring, having to find everything for yourself, and like, if you just look at a picture of Zelda 1, it just looks like, but the graphics are, how am I ever going to feel a sense of adventure?
I had a similar experience with that, because like, I remember playing Zelda 1 when I was a kid, and I was like, but then, like, I pplayed it, like, recently again, I'm like, this is amazing. Like, this is, like, is, like, open-ended, and it's
people out there deeply misunderstand, it's just what we were saying before. Yeah, they don't appreciate the way that it is the sum total of the parts of a game that determine the quality, which is why, we've talked about this before, like, they can show us all these previews for a game like Final Fantasy 15, but ultimately, what do we really know? Not a heck of a lot about how it's going to be as a whole game, which is what ultimately matters in the end, Yeah,
and like my brother Victor, like again, ultimate cred fag, like he's a huge diehard Zelda fan, and we both got into Zelda through Ocarina of Time.
That should be his title now. He's the ultimate cred
right. Well, we both got it. He's gonna listen to this too. That's hilarious. But we both got into Zelda with Ocarina of Time, and like he's played all the other ones since then. whether it's 2D or 3D, he's played all the ones since Ocarina of Time, but he's never gone back and played Zelda 1, and he's barely played A Link to the Past, if at all. And like, to him, it's like he sees it as, yeah, but like for me, Zelda is all about the big, the feeling of scale and the bigness. You know, his favorite one's Twilight Princess because it looks epic. And I'm like, yeah, but if you actually played Zelda 1, what you'll find is that the graphics, that fades away, and mechanically you feel like you're on an epic adventure because you have to find everything yourself, and it's such an interesting feeling to like learn this map, to go back and forth to all these locations and figure things out, that eventually it feels like an epic adventure. And
you know, I
can't get that through screen caps, you know.
I do
know
sympathize with his
amazing.
position, just in the sense that it sounds like he doesn't really experience what you're talking about. Like, he's not really familiar with that particular
but he
emotion.
has
So
no
the thing
idea,
that is, right,
because
right,
he hasn't
but
played
to him,
Zelda 1, you know.
Well, sure, that's an experience he hasn't had yet. Maybe I'm not trying to shit on you, Victor, but he hasn't had it. So if he had experienced it, that would open his mind to other things that he can experience. But I get his argument. It logically makes sense from his perspective. But obviously, you know, there's more out there.
I think that there's definitely, like, there's an extent to which we've been playing these games. Like, we'll play Zelda games on Digibros, and he never wants to play an older one because he's like, it won't, you know, I'm just gonna get bored. I'm gonna zone out and stuff. And I'm like, well, okay, I don't think we should play any of them first on there. I don't think your first experience with the game should ever be on a Let's Play show. But like,
yeah, I agree.
If he sat down and played Zelda 1, I think he'd like it. And I think, but you have to be willing to try, you know, and like,
that's true.
I mean, if you're gonna consider yourself a huge Zelda fan, why would you not? Why would you not go back and do Zelda 1?
Do you want to every time that you say that you're a huge Zelda fan, Vic, put that little asterisk there, like, oh, but I haven't played any of them before Link to the fucking Ocarina of Time. You know?
Me and Hayden were actually talking about how Zelda is like the biggest cred fag series amongst normies of all time. Like,
it's
like
true.
It's got such like fake complex lore. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, like the timeline.
There really is no lore. It's just stuff they made up in the game. But it's like, yo, man, the timeline. Like it blows my mind when I see people.
I don't know why people's investment in the timeline baffles me because it doesn't matter at all.
It's
it
crazy
has no narrative importance.
I find it so crazy when a new Zelda gets shown and people are trying to decipher where it takes place in the time. Like literally,
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It makes literally zero narrative difference.
The people who make the games literally gave you a timeline because you wanted a timeline, not because there was a timeline. They made one up because
they only came up with that as of Skyward Sword.
Right, but that's the thing. Like, bringing it back to what we first said, like playing a series in release order, like where you're talking about how he doesn't want to go back and play the original Zeldas because they're not as epic as the new ones. That's the problem. That's why I don't want people to go and play the more recent games, because then it makes the original games, which had the original ideas, which came up with these mechanics, which started this all, which eventually led up to this game you love, you know, like that now looks like a piece of shit because now it's been topped by its sequels.
But I guess
if you play it in release order, you're going to be like, that was awesome. Then play the next one. That was awesome.
Right. And that's such another great advantage to playing things in release order, as you can see the progression of things even if they're negative ultimately, like to go, I think a lot of people who just blindly transition from pixels to 3D, you know, there was obviously some sloppy shit going on there for a while. It's interesting to see that.
I love it because especially in games, like I feel like more than any other medium, it's like you play a game on one console and then like years later you jump to the next game and it's like the world looks different, you know, the characters look different. You're experiencing this upgrade because it's like you're now seeing the vision of the creators through a new lens of what they wanted, what they can now do, what they wanted it to originally look like. It's like
that's what's so exciting about like Yakuza 6. That's what's so exciting about it.
And don't go thinking, people, that means like, oh, that means I should just play the latest one because it's the closest to their artistic vision. No, that's not how it works.
You know, I want to speak directly to cred fags because I have two pieces of advice. My first piece, because you all know who you are if you've been listening to this, you figured it out. Two pieces of advice. One, try them all, even if you don't necessarily beat them. Like, you don't have to, like, if you go back to Elder Scrolls, like, each one is unique and has its own pieces of intrigue. If you start up Daggerfall and you immediately want to vomit, as I do, because the way that the perspective is, and the way, like, not just that the graphics aren't good, but that the way they're presented is, like, nauseating, in a way that only a 90s first-person PC game could be. Fine, at least give it a shot. I mean, some of you might play it and realize, hey, these graphics don't nauseate me at all. Here's what you'll get out of it. Daggerfall has the biggest map in any video game ever. People talk about Skyrim has a huge map, right? Skyrim has
it's the size of Great Britain in Daggerfall, isn't it?
Yes, like, Daggerfall is like actually larger than Great Britain. So to put that into perspective, Skyrim is about 16 square miles in size, and Daggerfall is like 20,000 square miles or something like that.
Oh my god.
Now,
games have just gotten better and better, guys. Only today have they finally achieved.
Well, look at these technological wonders we've got now that can make such huge maps. Fuck yourself, people.
I believe it's procedurally generated, I think, but I think it might be in the same way as what's it called? Oblivion, where Oblivion was like a procedurally generated map that was then solidified and they put it in the game. But Oblivion was like 10 square miles or something like that. Daggerfall's fucking massive. So, like, if that sounds interesting to you, then, like, if you play the game and then you find that out, then there might be someone who, like, starts off thinking, well, this isn't going to be as good as Skyrim, but then you find out that there's something so unique about it that it ends up actually being your favorite one, Like,
well, it's like such a fallacy that these, like, the newer stuff is better, because it's like, oh man, when assets were more simple and they didn't take as long to make, and it wasn't as expensive, we could make more game. And now we can't. You see so many sequels that are like, well, we removed this feature and this feature and this feature because they didn't have time to do it, because they had to make.
And the real issue with this whole thing is that it's a vicious cycle of there is consumer quote unquote demand for like higher resolution stuff, as in the meme is that it has to be like Square Enix's thing. It has to be picture perfect, like the best possible, have to spend all our resources making Lightning's tits move in a slightly more realistic way than anything else. And so all the resources get diverted there because there's this perceived demand for that as opposed to artistic.
Well, and part of the problem
fuck it then.
And I demand it.
I think part of the problem is review scores.
Well, Lightning's tits, I mean, okay, that's a set. We all want that. Aside from that,
there's a lot of Japanese developers who seem to perfectly understand this. And you get when a new game comes out from like Nipponichi or Falcom or like most of the things that are published by Atlas, like those games tend to look old, but they also tend to have way more content than any newer games. And you end up with this situation where, like,
you can play Disgaea for literally forever, as I recall.
Right, and they keep making new Disgaea, and they all look like Disgaea 1. Like, I mean, the textures are in HD now, but they're still fucking the same pixel art drawings, right?
I think. Oh, sorry, go
on. I think like those games are still as big as ever. You can still play a new Disgaea for 80 to 300 hours, and I think that when these games when you open up a Game Informer magazine, the game they're going to give a 10 out of 10 is going to be the BioShock Infinite. The one that looks beautiful and looks like it's, modern and cutting edge, and it seems to be saying something with its story. So 10 out of 10,
like God of War 4. Looking forward to that 10 out of 10.
The thing is, though, I think
you've got Trails of you've got like Trails of Cold Steel coming out or something like that, which I haven't played this myself, but like I've heard from our friend Mother's Basement, like it's like one of his favorite games of all time. And that game is like pixel art, but it's like a huge, unbelievably massive world, with all these different moving parts. Every NPC has a story and stuff, and there's side quests everywhere. And like, if that game, even if that game was perfect at what it wanted to do, if you open up a Game Informer, that score will never be above an 8.5. It will not happen because it doesn't look like a 10, and they won't give it a 10.
And it's just all about the different standards that they're using to judge versus guys like us.
Right. They're only going to give the 10 to the big modern game.
I once went to like the library in my university, and they had like a bunch of old gaming magazines. They had like reviews from like the 90s.
Oh, cool.
And they had like a big compilation of like loads of scores they gave to games in like the end of the 90s. And you won't believe it. It's like they like review like these polygon like horrible messes, like, oh yes, Siphon. I haven't played Siphon Filter. Maybe it's really good, but it's like, oh, it's like this polygonal like like terrible draw distance game, like 9 out of 10, and then it's like, well, Symphony of the Night doesn't seem to really be pushing any boundaries here. Just seems like a Super Nintendo game. Nothing to see here. 6 out of 10, and then it's like
always been this way. There's no eggs. There's no eggs.
Yeah.
I do think though reviews have gotten slightly better, because it used to be you'd read a review and it'd be like there'd be sections and it'd be like graphics 5 out of 10 gameplay, and it's like if the graphics weren't out of 10, then it wouldn't be a 10. It's like at least now people are moving away a bit from scores and that kind of rhetoric and more.
Right. The thing is, like, I've never read reviews. I've never given a shit. Like, if there was ever a review, all I do is like look at the pictures and then be like,
Well, I grew up on reviews. Like, how I got into doing this kind of writing is that I would read like Nintendo Power magazine, and like as a teenager, I read like a lot of GameStop reviews, and I was always fascinated with the scores, because to me growing up, it always seemed like knowing what is the highest scored game tells me what are the classics. Like if I know that GameStop gave their highest score ever to Metroid Prime, for the longest time, then like I now need to go play Metroid Prime, Sure. And when you find a reviewer who you really trust their scores, then that can be really helpful. Like, because I used to really trust, have I been saying Stop? I meant Spot, GameSpot.
I used to really trust the gaming Brit, and then he went to shit.
Well, I used to really trust GameSpot because of the fact that they were super strict with their scores. They only gave like the high scores to like very rarely, and so I always thought, cool, those must be like the true classic games. But then over time, I realized that they fall into the same trap everyone else does. Of if it's not like new and modern and like a big fucking graphical powerhouse, it's not going to get that 10. Even if you make the best JRPG of all time, it will not get a 10 because
that's
it's
why
a JRPG.
The YouTube evolution of reviews is a really great thing, and it's got positive and negatives, but it's so great to really be able to get deep into, like, you don't have like one page to fill with text. That's all you get. You could have a guy like Bunny Hop going into like the history and make a half-an-hour fucking video about every little detail you could ever want to know, and why this game is an artistic masterpiece for collecting all these various aspects from all the different games in the series and presenting them in this way that will perfectly capture everything that longtime fans of that series has wanted. Right. Like that's what's really valuable. That's the kind of review that has real merit in the world.
Well, I think these journalists are like, oh, what the fuck? I gotta keep my finger on the pulse of the gaming landscape. What am I doing wasting my time with this game that looks like a fucking PS2 game or whatever, So they're like, fuck, just get it over with. Yeah, whatever, 7.2.
They come in, I think it's like people who they jump in and then like they just have to go, because news happens fast, right? Like, I know a lot of anime fans who get into anime because they saw one or two, like, older shows, and then they start watching current stuff. And, like, if you're trying to keep up with current stuff consistently, it can take up all your free time, because there's 45 fucking shows that come out each season.
None of them
and so I know a lot of people who pretty much never watch older anime. I think Jeff somewhat falls into this trap where, like, I only ever hear Jeff talk about watching current shit,
Kinda.
And, like, to me, that stuff is, like, because current anime lets you be a part of the conversation for now. But what it doesn't do is give you perspective on what's been great, Like, if this current season that has just started, there's not a single show on right now that I like immediately think this is going to be talked about in 5 years. Nothing gives me that impression. Whereas you can go watch a show that has been talked about for 5 years, and now you're going to get like a new perspective on the history of the medium and what highs it can reach, and and that will enrich you for the future when you actually want to talk about like deeper shit. If you want to talk about a new game and be like, this is how it reflects the state of gaming, you need to know the state of gaming.
Dude, that's really cool, because in terms of games, if you think back to like what from like just 5 years ago, what are the games that have stood the test of time and are imitated now? You think of stuff like Dark Souls, which was like a low budget JRPG made on like $1 million that like wasn't cutting edge. No one really knew about it. Had a slow sort of like ascent into popularity, and now that's the game everyone wants to be, and all the mechanics loads of RPGs copy, and that's why, and that's exactly why, like, just because the game is the prettiest and the most hype doesn't mean it's going to be the most.
That's a good point, man.
No one's gonna care about, like, because that year I think Dark Souls came out in 2011. And so this would be before BioShock Infinite and stuff. But like, what would you say are some games from 2011 that were like big then? You know that because
Skyrim, Skyward Sword, Uncharted 3.
It's like thinking of
Evolution, Batman Arkham City. Does anyone still boot up Batman Arkham City? You know,
maybe.
Like I think a series like the Souls games, like each one has been such a big deal that it'll be talked about forever. It'll influence a million games. There's been countless articles written on it. It's studied in academia.
Oh, hey, you know what game came out in 2011? Minecraft.
Oh, well, that is a big deal.
People are still talking about Dark Souls 1 more than they do fucking Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, or even Bloodborne.
That's
I mean, I was trying to like find something from 2011, but like even to use BioShock Infinite from 2012 or 13, it might have been 2012. Now that I think about it,
I think it was 2012. I want to say
that game was such a big deal when it came out, and I don't think anyone cares anymore. Like, no one goes back to play BioShock Infinite again.
Well, they're doing
it's not going to be like.
Oh, thank God! Yes, just what we need.
Like, you can buy that game for $5 in a bargain bin at fucking GameStop, you know. But like, that's a game that I don't think is going to have nearly the cultural footprint that a Dark Souls has, you know.
Because it got exposed as the piece of shit it was right after.
Yeah, it got exposed quite a bit. I think I saw someone linked an article the other day where it was like a reviewer for like Eurogame, I think. Like he did an article on BioShock Infinite talking about how, man, I way overhyped this game. I've replayed it today.
It's like the Brexit of video games.
Does
that mean
overhyped? I think I get it.
I live in Britain. I don't get
it. Right now we're gonna get like No Man's Sky is like a new game. Well, I don't know what it's even talking about it really, even though
people
it's out
at my
now.
work are talking about
talking
it. It's
about
gonna be
it
the
on
most epic game ever, dude.
Right, like a game like that comes out, and like again for a week, it's gonna be a big deal. Everyone's gonna play that. But imagine if imagine just for a second, if everyone who played No Man's Sky instead played like Deus Ex, like. Everyone just took like a classic game that everyone agrees is a classic, and we all just decided to play that instead of the one new game. Because this was my other advice back when I said I had two pieces of advice to the people who are what's the word we're using? Cred fags.
Oh, yeah.
The other piece of advice is like, and Charlie was kind of saying this before. It's still the same amount of content to play like an older one, right? Like, people think of it as, oh man, I have to play through all these Yakuza games, right? But like, you can probably beat a Yakuza game in like 2 days.
Yeah.
And so playing through 6 Yakuza games is going to take you like a week and a half. It's how long did it take you to play through all of them for your next favorite video?
It actually took me a while. Over the course of like a year, I recorded footage for that video.
Okay, but it's not like the games themselves are that long.
No.
Hey man, Hayden gets distracted easily. It's not like he was like playing that shit back to back.
He has a job and what?
Right.
You know, point me.
Quick, backtrack as quick as you can.
Like, I mean, if it's all the Final Fantasy games, that's gonna take you
that's gonna take you a while.
But even then, like when I play through a game, I usually play through it in like really fast. I played through it in like 1 or 2 sittings. You know, I did all the Souls games in a week. Like at the start of this year, like I did. You know, I played through Bloodborne in 3 days. Then I did Dark Souls in 2 days, Demon Souls in 2 days, and Dark Souls 3 in 2 days. Yeah, I did Bloodborne first. Well, I had played the other ones before. I just never beat
But
any
playing
of them.
Bloodborne is what made you want to play those other ones, as I recall.
Well, it was that Bloodborne existed, and Bloodborne is like perfectly my aesthetic, and it was like a game that I felt I had to play.
So
which
what you're saying, it was hyped up, and you felt like you wanted to be part of the conversation.
Well, I didn't. I played it a year after it came out, so it was definitely not still hype. I resisted hype forever because I actually wanted to play. Because like I said, I'd gotten halfway through Dark Souls 1, and I'd played a bunch of Demon Souls. I knew about the series since it came out, and then like everyone was hype about Bloodborne, and I refused to play it because of the load times. I was like, I will not touch this game until they fix the fucking load times.
I played that whole fucking game through with those load times,
same.
and then after I beat it, oh god.
Same.
But the funny thing
people.
is, like, because I didn't, like, I feel like because I didn't ride the hype wave, which would have done nothing for me to play it when it was hype. Like, it made no difference that I played it a year later. I still loved the game, and I feel like I got a better experience out of it for waiting. And my brother Victor makes it out like I'm weird for that. Like, he was talking about, like, Pokemon Go came out, and I wouldn't play it because it was so fucking broken. And Victor was like, but it's what everyone's doing. And I'm like, yeah, it sucks. It's a shit game. And then they finally made it like playable, and now I'm willing to play it. And he was like telling his girlfriend like he wouldn't even play Bloodborne just because of the load screens. I'm like, that's what a sensible person does.
That's a pretty reasonable. See, Victor clearly values the sense of community involved.
Because they said when they were gonna patch it, like when the game came out, they were like, yeah, we're gonna have a patch at the end of the month. And I was like, okay, I'll wait for the end of the month. There you go. I can go do something else. And that's what I mean when I'm saying that, like, playing another game takes just as long, right? Like, you're always thinking Deus Ex, it's this old game, it's considered a classic, everyone loves it, it's, like, considered one of the best games of all time, but I don't want to have to put the time into playing this old game. It'll take you just as long as playing a new game, which is a couple days. Just,
like...
take out one of the new games you're going to play and go play Deus Ex, you know?
Especially if you're just a regular person who only plays games for entertainment. I think this is something me and Hayden run into sometimes, where it's like, we've got loads of video ideas we want to make, and so whenever we're playing a game, we're thinking in the back of our minds, man, I could be playing a game that I should be making a video on right now.
Right.
And if, that's
the trap I fall into.
Like,
the reason I haven't played the Witcher games is that Bunny Hop already did such a good job of talking about them that I know I can't make a video about the Witcher games. So it's harder to justify
that Hearts of Stone DLC looks tight as fuck. I want to get into that
but like,
shit.
how can I justify over 100 hours into a game that doesn't impact my career at all? It would just be leisure time. What is this concept?
Just have an anime playing in like the background.
Dubbed, of course, so you can hear it.
Dubbed, of course.
And still play the game, obviously, you know.
Right.
Fireball Jitsu.
Hey, if you watch the Tales of Zestiria anime, you can review the game and the anime at the same time.
Dude,
I don't want to have to do that.
I don't want to do. No one should do that.
So what you're telling me about Dark Souls is you didn't play Kingsfield first?
Look at this plebe over here.
And it's funny you say that though, because I have always wanted to try to play every From Software game. Right. And like that's how my mind works, is I play Dark Souls and I'm like, I want to know everything these guys have done. Like, because surely they've done great shit. Surely Kingsfield has awesome elements to it, and like,
that inspired Souls later.
I think.
And I knew about Demon's Souls because my friend was a huge Armored Core fan. So like, now I want to play all the Armored Core games as well.
You're differentiating between two tiers of like cred, because when we're looking at cred as in, I want to there's a story and I want to experience it, but then I want to jump around and just get the important stuff and get the cred. And then there's this whole, in an analytical sense, like, if you want to play the Dark Souls series, and, play the Dark Souls series, don't skip around, play the Dark Souls series. And now if you want to have, like, an analytical idea of the entire design of Dark Souls, then you should go back and play the Demon's Souls and all the other games.
I think we've stumbled upon a thing with credfags, is that there's actually two ends to the spectrum of credfaggery, and each end is actually credfag.
Like going too far in the other direction is also a bad thing.
If you're just playing everything just for the cred, like, you didn't play this? You didn't play that?
Not simply. I don't want to play them all just so I can laugh at people, but like, I do think
some do.
Right.
Well, because once you start looking into this stuff, and I mean, we've talked about it a lot in this podcast, so now no one in our audience can claim ignorance of this fact anymore. That the new ones aren't always the best, right? And like, my friend who was a huge Armored Core fan, he always said that like 4 toned it down a lot. It made it a lot more simple and like accessible because they wanted the cred fag audience. They want the people who don't, because Armored Core is never a super successful series, so they obviously toned it down a little bit for new players. And then Armored Core 5 came out and my friend didn't even like it. Huge fan of the franchise, doesn't even like the newest one. So really you got to play 2 or 3. Those are the most acclaimed ones. And I can totally see people who play Dark Souls going, I want to know what From Software did before. I'm going to play Armored Core 5. that seems like you can totally see that you understand this happening, but you should say, I want to know where Dark Souls came from. I'm going to play Armored Core 1 on the PS1, or at least 2 or 3, because they're the ones, like, at least look into it and find out which ones people actually care about.
Right. And that's the thing about us, because we're, like, analytically minded. Bringing it way back to what you were saying before, it's like we care about the context of the series as it moves forward. We want to, like, when we're, we want to criticize the story, its gameplay mechanics and stuff like that. We want to see how it evolved over the course. We don't want to be, like, ignorant of a certain aspect of it. And
what we're trying to say, people, is that we're smarter than you and you're all dummies, and I don't care about your opinion. That's the summary here.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, good.
I just think, I guess what we're really arguing for is not so much to say that we're necessarily better, but that we want more people to feel the way we do, because it would make for it would make for better conversations. And like my brother being such a huge Zelda fan, I would love to be able to talk to him about Zelda 1, and he's never fucking played it. And I've begged him to, like, for years now, and he won't play it. And it's like, I think we can have such a more interesting conversation about Zelda. And, we got all these people like me who played Zelda 1 who are so excited about this new game. What is it, Breath of the Wild? Is that what it's called?
That's the one.
Because it goes back to that shit, man. It gets going, taking it back.
It's using the Zelda 1 formula. And so, like, there's people like me and, I know Matthew Matosis mentioned this in his live stream, and someone else did. Maybe it was one of you guys. But, like, we're all like, yeah, wow, this looks like Zelda 1. That's really cool. And people who, Jesus
never
Christ,
played that, like,
I think a tree just got knocked down, like, right near my house, like, by lightning.
Holy
dude,
shit!
The cred facts are coming, man. They're coming to get you.
Somebody draw that. That's hilarious.
On your doorstep, man.
I'm gonna look out the window. And see
They're like crawling up your wall.
Well, okay. You know what? While you're doing that, what I was gonna say is, I really it's not like I hate everyone who's a cred fact, but it's their existence that encourages things like game, like this trend of, like, casualization, that sort of thing, where people aren't really invested in the things that made it great so much as, new stuff, new technology. And it really reminds me strongly, of a thing like the Final Fantasy VII Remake, which, as opposed, I mean, we don't know yet, but the things that look, the signs are there that what they're going for is this kind of, like you said, homogenized experience of, like, action RPG.
You just got to like almost a whole other can of worms, which is like, that it does encourage this, because every company the big problem is that all these companies want to have the biggest game. Right. And we've talked about this before, that, like, again, with those Japanese developers who are still sticking to their PS2 graphics and still making big, expansive games with, like, really unique systems, those people are making those games because they know that there's an audience who wants those systems. Whereas Final Fantasy VII was a great game, and it had its own style, and the problem is not that Square Enix, like, the problem is they want a bigger audience. They want Final Fantasy VII to be played by everybody.
They have to sell 10 million units or they're fucking in the red.
They're going to make it the most broadly appealing game possible, which loses out on hitting anyone deeply, because something that's niche will, like, the people who are into something niche appreciate it way more than the people who are into something broad.
Some of the decisions, though, on a logical level just blow my mind, because, like, when I played the Ratchet remake, and I'm getting all these, like, tutorial messages on where to go, like, you run out of ammo, change weapons, go here, do this, everyone's talking to you, and I'm like, okay, this game is for kids, but I was a kid when I played the original game, and I didn't get any of this, and I beat the game, and it wasn't like I'm, like, thinking, like, what is changed? Like, are kids dumber now? Is that what they're trying to say? Because the
kids not handle a more sarcastic narrative with better characters? Can kids not handle good writing anymore? Is that what it really shows? Is that
the adults think that the kids can't handle it. That's what it's really.
Well, no, because they probably did some, like, stupid, like, study where they got a few kids in a room to play the game, and then they were like, I don't know where to go for, like, 2 minutes. Which is, like, too much. You got to know what to do at all times.
It's a larger issue, man. It extends to a lot of the things in our culture and the way society has changed. But let me ask you a question, though, about this. Is it even possible, since we're talking about this, is it even possible to avoid this kind of cycle of small developer makes great game, it does really well, they grow in size, they get more responsibility, forcing them to achieve larger, more mainstream success, and they will just begin to pander and lose their creative spark that drive them in the first place. Is that an inevitable thing? Can it be fought? I don't know.
I think here's what I think is going to happen.
Yeah.
I think Square Enix is going to burn themselves out. Like literally, they're going to run out of money. They've been losing money on all these fucking games. And
they
shit.
have no money.
Every single day, a new promotional Final Fantasy 15 thing comes out, and I send it to Nate, and I'm like, and it's like it's happening every day. Like,
guys, let me just set the stage. Okay, so a little while ago, there was this thing called Uncovered Final Fantasy 15, which was a big event for Final Fantasy 15, which is coming out. It was revealed when the release date was. At that event, they revealed that not only have they like spent the money to make this game over the course of 10 years, they also made an anime. They paid for an anime. They made a movie. They made a fucking car. They've made like so much extra shit
games.
they didn't have to spend money on. They chose to, and they have to make that kind of money back.
And here's the question. Here's the question. If Final Fantasy 15 had come out 5 years ago with PS2 graphics, would it be a lesser experience? No, it would have had gameplay. It would have had an emotional story or whatever. It would have been. It could have been just as hard hitting and just as good.
What I think is going to happen.
Fantasy.
I think we're going to see I think Final Fantasy 15, which it could sell 5 million copies and still tank in terms of like what they need it to make, because the fucking budget is crazy on this thing. Right. Because I mean that's what happened with like Tomb Raider and Hitman and whatever the other one was that they had published that year, where they've like reported losses on these games that sold unbelievably well. Like
Tomb Raider sold 6 million, not enough. We wanted
By the way, guys, the Final Fantasy 13 trilogy as a whole has sold only over 11 million copies, and that's 3 games. It's 3 games together.
Yeah, it's 15's not gonna work, and I think once Square Enix tanks, and once we start losing, because I mean, I feel like all those big developers are in trouble, and it's only getting worse with this new generation of games where no one can even make fucking games for these consoles because they're too it's too much to try to make these games, and like I think that eventually Steam is going to kill it all, because everyone loves indie games now. Like indie games are no longer a thing that only like weird niche PC players who are not a part of the crowd play. A game like Minecraft, or like even just like Braid or Meat Boy, those games were such huge successes, and it's just there's more and more. Like I feel like every year there's more indie games that everyone's talking about. There's more shit everyone knows, and with YouTube reviewers, pumping out reviews of these games, where again, if you follow someone like Bunny Hop, then an indie game is being presented with the same amount of care and seriousness as a mainstream title. And like as these indie games become more mainstream, more and more people are going to go, why the fuck would we spend all that money on a big game that's probably going to fail?
The change has started. The shift has begun, and
you have to get all those people, and as soon as you have like if you need 7 million people to play your game, and your game comes out in the same week as an indie game that gets 3.5 million players because it just sparks wildfire and everyone plays it, your game's fucked, And I think that's what's going to happen.
YouTube has finally, it hasn't totally set us free, but it has created an environment where you can get reviews of things and content with the least possible amount of corporate influence these people are just doing it out of passion, and they turn it into a career, and there's going to be little things that creep in and stuff, but like in the specific case of Square Enix, and more specifically Final Fantasy 15 has become a forced meme. At this point, it is an extremely forced meme, and every forced meme is doomed to die a horrible death. And like I've said before, like I said in my Final Fantasy 7 remake video, I would really like Square Enix to just die, in order for them to stop raping their legacy. Just let it go. But just break into small groups and make little games. You make Bravely Default. You can make games like that. Make little baby Final Fantasies. Just do those, and we'll all be better off.
Dude.
But isn't that
what
funny?
What if the game is good?
What if the game's good though? What if it's the best game of all time?
Nate, you haven't done your research right. Tabata is catering to the fans.
Yeah,
I don't know what you're talking about. How can you say this?
How can I complain?
Final Fantasy 15 could be the greatest game ever, and it still won't sell enough to make back its money. It'll still kill Square Enix.
Isn't that funny though? With Final Fantasy,
fucked up so bad.
The way the Final Fantasy franchise started, like they were dying. They created
Yeah.
this one last game and it saved them. Final Fantasy 15 is finally full circle. It kills itself.
I don't think it's going to die right after 15 because they've got their other branches that
They got
sustain them to some
KH3,
extent.
which will sell.
KH3 will do fine.
As the Disney bucks.
But
will it make back its budget? The game's been in development for quite a while.
It's going to be a long... Every Juggernaut, when it begins to go away, will kick and scream. It cannot do anything but resist its inevitable death and decline. So there will be a long... If it does, in fact, die, which, I mean, everything dies eventually, it will be a very long, drawn-out, painful process for every party involved, and no one's going to come out good at the end of that, especially not my beloved Final Fantasy.
I mean, somehow Konami is still kicking.
Yeah, for how much longer, man? Who knows? Like, they're pachinko. I mean, they're not even what they were. They're just a pachinko company now, and that's fine. They're a gambling company.
That's
okay.
That's the sad thing, though. When these IPs die, they don't just die. They become chained.
Turn into a fucking pachinko machine, and it's like watching her. She was so much more. It's retarded to even say it, but like she was treated with more respect by being a character in Metal Gear Solid 3, and now they're fucking slap her on a pachinko. It's so disrespectful. It pisses
It's like
me off.
these
Jesus
franchises
Christ.
can't get off the ship. They're captain of the ship. They got to go down with the ship and like, drown in the water because no one's gonna. The companies aren't gonna sell these giant IPs. It's all they got left.
But what they are now is the ship has gone down and the company is rapidly wrapping duct tape where the water is coming in through the sides, and they're like, "Oh God, we gotta hold it. We gotta survive as long as possible."
I think what all these companies are missing, the forest that they're missing for the trees, the trees being their big budget games, is that back in the 90s, a new great game came out all the time, right?
Yeah.
We keep saying how Final Fantasy had a game every fucking year in the 90s.
I remember
when
those
I
days.
looked at that Wikipedia page. Sorry, I muted my mic.
Who's got a dick in his mouth right now? Okay.
I muted my
my
mic
dick.
to have like to have a biscuit, but like I had to jump in, so I unmuted it halfway through.
That's
the
a
Okay.
cookie for our American
It blew my
audience.
mind when I looked at that Wikipedia page of the Final Fantasy timeline release dates, and it's
Yeah.
like 7, 8, 9, 10, 4 games in like 4 or 5 years.
Hey man,
Yeah.
I'm the one who linked
the
you that
fuck?
bitch.
What the
And Tactics too. Don't forget Tactics.
like what is the benefit of waiting 5
dude,
years? For
that's
a
the thing,
unfinished
though.
game?
These people have not decided this model. It has been basically forced upon them
Well,
by perceived demands.
The thing is that the reason that they're not getting that, like why that's such a big problem, is that you look at your PS2 library. There's 1,000,000 fucking games, right? You look at your PS3, and even that has eventually it had a decent catalog. You look at your PS4, it's been out for years. There's nothing on it. The Wii U has been out for years. It has like 10 great games, and they're all great, but that's all there is. They're already
literally
talking about the fucking
zero
NX.
like
game.
I go to a shop and look at the PS4 section, and I don't see because Yakuza 0's in Japan. I don't see like this is like the game of the generations as a genre.
Well, I guess Bloodborne.
If you go to
That's
GameStop,
the one. That's the
But
one.
it's
if you go to
it's
GameStop,
the
they still have
weirdest
an
section.
Xbox 360 section that covers 3 fucking walls because so many games came out for that console.
The PS4 section is so weird because it's like PS3 ports, a few new games, and then loads of PC indie games that have been ported over into boxes. It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
It's so it's like maybe there'll be like 10 original PS4 only games, and the rest is like ports.
The fucking Wii U shelf is depressing because
my
I was
God,
there.
yeah. It is
I was
bad,
there
it is
I was
bad.
at GameStop just like yesterday, and it's just this one little
just
rack,
Splatoon.
and I'm like, that's it. That's the whole
the
Wii U, and it's
PS4
going out.
The Vita section.
Yeah,
You've seen some
PS4
stores don't have a Vita section anymore. It's like
yeah, I'm not surprised.
what's gonna? I think why this is such a problem is that people need. There is a huge demand for there to always be a game to play because people aren't going to wait around, and and this is why a game like Overwatch is such a huge deal because Overwatch is a game that will keep you busy for indefinitely. Like it's a game that because people don't want. People want those big games, but they want them every weekend because the way people play games is they go out and they buy one and they play through it and then they need something else.
And that is why cred fags go back and play the old games.
Yeah. Well, there is one game that keeps me plenty busy on my PS4, and that game is Dead or Alive Extreme 3 Fortune.
Hell yeah.
Oh, the only problem is it got fucking banned in America, so you had to import it. So I'm not going to see that on GameStop shelves.
But yeah, point being,
Oh,
I think
man.
what'll kill the big industry is just the fact that people need another game. People are going to finish a game and they crave another game, and no games are coming out from these big publishers.
Right,
and
right.
you know, when you have a game like Overwatch come out and everyone can play it, then like they're not going to bother with anything else. They're just going to all play Overwatch.
Like,
you know?
they won't, but what they really should do is they should completely revamp their development cycle, have the hardware people work with the software guys. It's obviously too complex to do easily, but reinvent the idea of like a great game coming out from your studio every year. Whatever sacrifices you need to make, do that, because that will make people buy your consoles. That will drive up PS4 is like winning, I heard, is like doing by far the best somehow. I don't know how, but it is.
It was all that E3
perception
press
console be
conference
winning.
because
The
people got so
perception of
fucking
the
hyped.
PS4 being the console to play that makes it sell.
Marketing did it.
I think we ran into like I think the saddest thing about all this is the loss of the middle ground, where every game's all or nothing. It's all either like a huge fucking giant game,
kind of like
or,
the loss of the middle class. Know what I'm saying?
or like a
dog?
tiny indie game. And it's like, what happened to a time when we could have like 100? Like, what happened when there was 100 games that could come out and they were all just the coolest? You know,
Dude. Like for the last 2 generations, everyone like has been like, yo, Nintendo, where are the franchises? Where are the franchises gone? It's like, you remember the GameCube, it was like, and within 3 years, it was like, boom, Mario, boom, Zelda, boom, Metroid, boom, Star Fox, boom, F-Zero, boom, like, you know, it was like crazy.
Nothing is a better example of this than what Matthew Matosis pointed out in his Metal Gear Solid 4 video when Otacon does his speech about, like, Snake, you need to change the disc. And he's like, Otacon, what are you talking about? Oh, that's right. We're on the Blu-ray. Double technology is so fucking amazing, you don't even need to change the disc. Cue the 5-hour loading period between when you fucking need to load the next section of the game,
man, now you can
as opposed to
install the
just
whole
swapping.
thing.
Yeah, great. It only takes 10 hours to install the whole thing. Fantastic. Just what I want.
30 minutes, dude.
Yeah, right. I'd rather just buy a game with 3 discs and swap them out in 10 seconds each.
Oh, wow.
I'm just
so you
saying.
can get to your next game, you fucking crud fag.
You know this. Yeah, you should have to take longer to play games like we did back in the day. No, the point is technology is not it's not helping games achieve a better, I don't know. It's not. It's working counter to the goals that I think we can all agree on.
Hey,
you know,
man,
in a
can
lot
I-
of
can I-
ways.
I'll just bring-
Why is it such a big problem to have to install MGS4?
Because I'm a Nintendard who can't construct his own computer. So
you know, I think the Metal Gear Solid franchise right there. This, like, all I have to do is say a few dates, and we can put everything we've just said into perspective.
yeah.
The first 3 Metal Gear Solid games are pretty much considered the best, right? The fan favorites. 4 is considered kind of a letdown by a lot of people. 5 is considered a huge letdown by a lot of people.
Piece of shit.
Not saying this is true of everyone, because
And the
obviously there's a
cred
lot
fags
of
say that it's the greatest
Right.
game that's ever been made.
But,
yeah.
like,
The first one they fucking played.
That's right.
Right.
That's
Best
right.
game
But
in
I
the
think-
series that I've never
I think
played.
I think it can be. I think if you really want perspective on, like, whether or not you like Metal Gear Solid 5, we can all agree that like Metal Gear Solids 1, 2, and 3 are not that contested the way that 5 is.
No, they are
Metal
not.
Gear Solid 1 came out in '98. 3 years later, we got Metal Gear Solid 2.
Well, to be fair, Metal Gear Solid 2 is a little too smart for a lot of people to get initially.
right. Well,
Dude,
all right, let me finish the dates.
Okay,
1998. 3 years later, we got Metal Gear Solid 2. 3 years after that, we got 3 years after that, we got Metal Gear Solid 3. Then somehow it took another 4 years before we got the next game, and it's somehow worse than the first 3. And then it takes another 7 years before we get the next game, and it's somehow worse than all of
Hey,
them.
man, Peace Walker,
Something-
though. Portable
This is the
Peace Walker.
trajectory we're on.
Guys,
it takes
I'm just
longer
gonna
and longer
say-
to make a game, and yet it somehow is worse.
I'm just
You
going to
know?
put the rule out there. The shorter your development lifetime, the better the game will be. I'm just
I don't
throwing that
know.
out. That's a
Well,
rule.
A
It's
week
a rule.
might be a bit.
No, that's it.
In-
I've made
in
great
terms
games
of-
at Game Jams, dude. We have made great games at Indie Game Jams over a 24-hour period. I'm just saying.
In terms of
only way
Metal
a game
Gear,
can
I
be
am
good is if they come up behind you and say, "Surprise, motherfucker," and you go, "Holy shit!" You know, you can't know
I
the
do,
game's coming
yeah,
out.
I do like that. That's like, hype is bad. You know, hype is real bad for these sorts of things.
From this day forward, I'm deciding there are 4 Metal Gear Solid games, and then 5 is V. It's just V.
Yeah.
It's just
What
a
about-
spin-off called V about a guy called V, and there's four Metal Gear Solid games, and it ended at Metal Gear Solid 4 as
Metal
It works
Gear
for me.
Solid 5 starring Big Meme.
Imagine though.
Yeah.
Okay, like Metal Gear Solid 4 gets a lot of shit, deservedly, for a lot of things.
Yeah.
But imagine if that ending of Metal Gear Solid 4 had come now with Konami's death. How legendary that game would have been.
It'd probably be pretty good.
It would have been the more like it is. It's already probably one of the most legendary games ever. But it would have been like, you know, it would elevated it more than this, like going out on a wet fart and like
yeah.
you know. Oh well.
Hey, you're forgetting about Peace Walker, dude.
No
Peace
one.
Walker's, I like Peace Walker a lot, actually. I'm
a cred fag. I didn't finish Peace Walker.
Peace Walker's a piece of shit.
The final boss against Paz with the J-Rock, fucking 10 out of 10. All right.
Spoilers.
Don't listen to Matthew Matosis. It's the best final boss of all time.
Nah, Peace Walker is inoffensive, but it's only offensive when it's combined with Metal Gear Solid 5.
That's for sure.
They become a duo of destruction towards the entire franchise.
So we've kind of explored this topic thoroughly. I mean, we had our second topic.
What's
I don't
this
know.
I don't think we need it.
I don't think we need
hour
it.
and a
You
half
know,
already.
No.
I think this is a pretty good place to wrap it up. So, anybody have any final thoughts?
Oh, I've got some
cred
final.
facts.
I've got
Okay.
some final cred thoughts.
Sure.
So I think whenever I play a game, and when I play a series, I really, in my mind, I really want to recreate what, like, if I've missed a series, I want to recreate what it would have been like if I'd played them in order and if I had experienced them as they came out. And I think in that sense, like, because you can't really match that kind of experience. You can never approximate to what it would be. I mean, me and Nate have talked about this multiple times.
Yep.
You know, like when we played a series like Kingdom Hearts growing up, and like you play that first game and then you wait years and you play that second game, and it's like meeting all the characters again and like experiencing that full story and then having payoffs that you know, were hinted at in the first game, and then years later, like 2 is probably is like a better game, I guess, than 1, and you could tell someone to go play 2 first.
It's
but come on.
contested, but I do think that.
Like you will not experience it. You will have a much better experience. And at the end of the day, that's what media's about. It's not about being on Twitter and knowing what happened and being able to be in the conversation. It's about having a great experience. And if you want the best experience, go to the start it from the beginning and just
Incidentally,
and immerse yourself in that journey. That's
incidentally,
what I gotta
people,
say.
Kingdom Hearts 2 released 2002, Kingdom Hearts 1 2002, Kingdom Hearts 2, Kingdom Hearts 1 2002, Kingdom Hearts 2 2006. So even that 4 years at the time felt like forever.
I know, right?
And now we're like used to like, okay, new Kingdom Hearts, 10 years. All right, let's strap in, lads. Strap
No,
in.
that's normal. That's perfectly normal.
And by the way, Chain of Memories came out in the middle of that, so there was a real Kingdom Hearts game to sate your, hunger in the middle of that. So,
hey man, there's been like 20 fucking Kingdom Hearts games on DS in that time.
And I've played literally all of them, and I'm still pissed that Kingdom Hearts 3 is taking this long. Literally all of them, people.
Yeah. Well, I guess if I have parting thoughts to cred fags, which is probably going to be most of the people listening to this, because I think most of us have cred fag tendencies.
Yeah.
We've all cred fagged at least once in our lives.
Yeah, and we probably will continue to do so, regardless of knowing better. But like, I don't think it's necessary. Like, I mean, you play games or you watch shows or whatever. You do it because you just want to in the moment, right? And for a lot of people, it's just, I got home from work, I want to get excited about something that's not work. I understand how hype can be fun when you've got all your friends are doing it, but if you have any interest in being a reviewer or speaking about the medium at all, or if you're a fan who wants to appreciate the medium in any depth, go back and play the old shit, because it will deepen your understanding of the new shit to degrees that you did not realize were possible. And that goes for every medium. Go back and look at the old shit. Even if you don't like it, it'll make you like the new stuff more, just knowing how far things have come,
Yeah, in a big way.
And being able to see things like again, to use Zelda, like, just to be able to see how the controls of like the newer games evolve from the old ones, and like, I don't know, there's a lot that fascinates me about like playing Zelda 1 and then playing a newer one and being like, wow, everything that's in this one is also in this one, but it's different. It's great. Go do it. Play them all.
And Go on, dude. Go on.
I was just going to say, you're never going to enjoy it as much as those people who you want to be part of the conversation with if you're not watching the whole thing.
Yeah. Especially if it's a bunch of Metal Gear fans are mad about 5, you're not going to be as mad about 5 by just playing 5. It's not going to happen.
Right. And you might start it and go, I don't get it. I don't like this. Right. Like if you started with Yakuza 3. Just saying.
And I guess my only thoughts.
I was just gonna say you might miss out on like your favorite game of all time. You might miss out on it. You might miss out on it. You don't if you start skipping. Like you don't know.
Spooky shit, man.
That's
true.
You don't want to be that guy.
Don't let like the reviewers and it's new so it must be good determine whether you play new games or old games. Because like what's to say you won't enjoy those old games more? Like you don't know. You didn't play them.
Exactly.
It's true, man. And I guess I just want to say that I think we're all cred fags at various points in our lives, like everybody said. And like Digi said, I think a lot of it is just an issue of people have different life experiences. They go to work, they come home, they've had a hard day, doing whatever that has nothing to do with, criticizing media in any capacity. They turn on The Big Bang Theory, they turn on Metal Gear Solid 5, and they go to town. And to those people, I empathize with you, but I'd also like to say, fuck you!
You gotta start Big Bang Theory from the beginning.
And I gotta ask him.
Yes. I gotta ask. What's the origin of Bazinga? I don't know. I need to know.
Maybe you'll like the joke if you see the origin.
What if it's been this? Watches Bazinga has been like a brilliant social commentary joke this entire like every time Sheldon experiences existential pain when he remembers the death of his father as a child, he says Bazinga reflexively. Oh my god, I'm a cred fag. I didn't even know. Didn't even know. Did you be saying something?
Yeah, just if you are a cred fag, I have to ask, do you want to be this way forever? Because like that's whenever there's someone who like keeps playing the new games and you're like, but what about the classics? And they're like, oh, I'll get to it someday. It's like you're never gonna get to them if you keep following the hype cycle and only playing the hype games. You're never gonna end up like Charlie said. You're gonna end up missing out on probably some of your favorite games because a vast majority of the best games in existence are old.
And people, if that seems overwhelming to you, like, oh, there's so many old games, I'll never be able to play them all. Pick a series that you're most interested in, start with those, and your life will immediately be more
even if it seems like it's on
the
clunkiest, oldest system of all time, just give it a go. Just start it.
Imagine how cool you'll feel when you're bragging to your friends. Oh no, I'm encouraging people to play obscure things just to brag about it. I take it back. Be a cred fag forever.
And another piece of advice: Emu Paradise.
Yes. Oh man.
Makes your life a lot easier.
We are not sponsored by that.
There is technology these days to just play. I don't think anyone's going to be sponsored by a fucking illegal.
You don't know. You don't know.
I'm just saying, don't be afraid of the law.
Emu Paradise, I will accept your
There's a lot of old games you can't find. Right. But you need to play all those Super Nintendo games. It doesn't matter if it's legal.
People.
Right. Yeah, the thing is, we're being like this. We're not being like this to be assholes. We want you to experience and have the best experience.
I want everyone to be informed and smart and critical and playing the best things out there based on their own judgment, Yeah. And that's it. Okay. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Chuck, Hayden, it's been great having you on. Thanks for coming. Let's do it again sometime soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Had a great time. Really, really good time.
Glad to hear it. Digi, fuck you. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
Yeah. I'm supposed to be working right now. I'm supposed to be working right now. But I'm not working. I'm doing nothing. My dick I'm jerking. Myself I'm sucking. I am an asshole. I am a stupid. I've got a deadline. Don't wanna do it. What the hell is wrong with me? I'm supposed to be making money. I'm supposed to be creating funny things that
what they came for. Instead, I'm tweeting, hashtag repeating. That's why there's no heat and holes in the ceiling. Yeah, it's quite the burden. It's a hard knock life being a genius.